Full Spectrum Survival on Survival Talk Radio. Join us for Dad Talks, political debates, and pro-gun conversation. Are you a fan of survival? Do you like all things survival? Full spectrum survival, urban survival, wilderness survival, how to escape and evade, lost or stranded, doomsday prepper, all things survival. You can find on www.daniel-shrigley.com. Come visit my official survival website at www.daniel-shrigley.com and learn how to sustain, survive, and escape and achieve rescue or self-rescue. Proficient Protection Agency is based out of Alameda, California. If you have security service needs, Proficient Protection Agency can provide armed and unarmed security services. They service Northern California Bay Area, and you can find them at www.ppasecurity.com. You're listening to Survival Talk Radio with me, your host, Dan-Shrigley. Are you worried about the war in Ukraine? Do you have fears that this could bleed into a World War III scenario? Well, let me put your mind at ease. Whatever happens, it's God's will, but you can still be prepared, and we're going to talk about that in great length.
Survive this.
Are you a fan of survival? Do you like all things survival? Full spectrum survival, urban survival, wilderness survival, how to escape and evade, lost or stranded, doomsday prepper, all things survival. You can find on www.daniel-shrigley.com. Come visit my official survival website at www.daniel-shrigley.com and learn how to sustain, survive, and escape and achieve rescue or self-rescue. Hello, everybody. Hello. Hey, look, we are in trying times, man. I went to the gas pump. It's over $5 a gallon here in California in the East Bay of San Francisco. It's gonna go up. It's gonna go up. I just saw a news broadcast saying that it's gonna go up about 20 more cents this week. And the Economist was saying it could go up as high as $6 a gallon to even $7 a gallon over the next few weeks, as soon as 2 weeks. So it's going to go up, you know. And I was sitting here watching the White House press secretary for Joe Biden's administration tell everybody that it's not Joe's fault. It's Putin's fault that we're going to pay so much money in gas. And I was like, that's not at all true. We were energy independent before he took office. And as soon as he took office, he decided he had to immediately remove that because his hatred for Trump was more than his, he just hated Trump so much that he had to reverse our energy independence, close down the pipeline, immediately to spite Trump at the sacrifice of us, the consumer, the voter, the citizens. Now we're paying high gas prices, just as we did when Obama was in office and and Biden was the vice president. We're now back to $5 a gallon in gas, like clockwork. But now it's going to go up to $7 a gallon in gas, like I've been talking about this whole time. So yeah, it is Joe Biden's fault. It is, because we were energy independent, and now we're not. And they still have not announced that they're going to make us energy independent again. And that just means we're stuck. We're stuck because Joe Biden's hatred for Trump's policy is more than he cares for us economically. So if you're a Joe Biden supporter, you can vote for whoever you want to. But I'm not a supporter of Joe Biden, because as soon as he took office, he, attacked everybody's bank account. And so either way, this talk show, we're going to talk about the war and how that concerns you. You need to have a survival mindset. And if you follow me for a while, maybe you followed me for a number of years, or maybe you're just coming on board, and that's why I'm going to give you a description. So I've talked a lot about the survival mindset, being in that mindset of being survival, and being a survivalist, and being a prepper, being prepared. And you could be prepared with all the inventory in the world. Say you were filthy rich. Say you had $3 million in the bank just laying around, and you can buy any survival stuff you want, any weapons you wanted, any preparations you wanted. But what you can't buy with your credit card or your ATM card or your checking account, checkbook, whatever, is knowledge. You have to go earn knowledge. You have to seek knowledge, and then you have to retain knowledge. And you can't just learn by watching videos. You can't just learn by reading books. You have to learn with hands-on application, because you need to have experience. And the reason why you need experience is because you need to develop techniques. It looks real easy when you're watching on camera, or even watching someone do a demonstration in person, rubbing sticks together to get a fire. But it's not as easy when you've never done it before and you're trying to figure it all out. It's easy when you have an instructor that has all the proper spindles and the hearth board and everything you need to do a hand drill, and they show you how to cut the notches out, and how to use a softwood and a hardwood and all that stuff, and what the combustion rate of that wood is, which wood combusts at a lower temperature and which would combust at a higher temperature, and what wood do you use as the drill versus what wood you use as the hearth board. If you don't know none of that, you're gonna be out there for 6 hours trying to start a fire. And then also there's other factors that take place, like what altitude are you at? Is there a lot of moisture in the air? Is it foggy outside? Is it in the morning? Is it the dew point hour? Is the wood wet? And is it completely bone dry? There's a lot of things like that. How to make a hand drill, how to make a fire plow or a fire thong, or a fire piston. How to use properly a ferrocerium rod or metal match to start a fire. There's many methods to starting a fire, but you need to know how to get a fire when technology is absent. And the best way to do that is through primitive methods. And those are methods that you have to practice. And even though we're talking about World War III, it's still going to come down to the basic fundamentals of survival. No matter what situation you find yourself in, it's always going to come back to the basic fundamentals of survival and bushcraft skills. Because if you have the fanciest knife and you're, going to ford across a body of water, or you have to swim and you lose your knife in the lake, and it's a murky lake, you can't see the bottom, and there's vegetation at the bottom of the lake, I mean, the chances of you recovering your knife are pretty slim. So you're going to need to know flint knapping. You're going to need to know how to make another blade, and how to do that naturally, or how to think outside the box and use litter to make a blade. You can get a beer bottle, preferably like brown glass bottle or even green glass, and you can flint knap the bottom of a beer bottle, or even a soda bottle, preferably probably a beer bottle, or a bottle that's brown or green, and flint knap it. But you're going to need to know how to flint knap, and from there you can make a cutting instrument, okay? Or you can make a knife, a dagger. You can make like basically a flake blade, which would be as sharp as a razor blade. But you're going to need to think outside the box to be able to do those things. And you're going to need to know how to make a spear. You need to know how to make, a bow and arrow, and you're just not going to know all these things by only watching videos and reading books and listening to a talk show. You're not. You're going to have to get your hands dirty. You're going to have to get out there and learn. Now, the benefit is we do have technology. And when you have the primitive side where you've got it locked down, then you can go ahead and exercise the technology side, what's out there today. And technology is always improving. It's like, when I came in the Army, we had AMPVS 7 Bravos. And then eventually we came out with AMPVS in the 14s. And, now I was looking at some, I think it was... I'm going to screw up this acronym for it, but I think it's the GSNVG 18s, which is a panoramic night vision, and they're like $31,000. $31,000 to buy some night vision. So that's not something everybody's going to be able to get. Now, I was watching a program it was a YouTube video where the guy is actually buying the tubes, and he's actually assembling at home just by ordering the parts. But he assembles together his own and PVS 7 14s, and PVS 14s, night NVG 14s, and he assembles it himself. And the reason why he prefers to do it that way is because a lot of these companies want to collect your information when you make purchases, because they're not required to by law, and they're not required to by the manufacturer that makes them, but the companies that are distributing them are trying to collect your information. And it might be because they're worried about their own personal liability by providing it to you, so they want to make sure they can show who you are, that they're not providing night vision to organized crime, criminal element, or someone with malicious intent. So I can understand that part. But so he prefers to build them himself. He does a video, shows you how to assemble, all that stuff. It's quite interesting. It's a lot more affordable than going out and buying them pre-assembled from the manufacturer. But I don't know about my my electrical engineering skills, so and soldering and stuff like that. So I'd probably just be easier for me just to fork out the cash to get those kind of things that I might need. When I was in the Army, I would say we really use the night vision for night ops when driving, or if we're doing like room clearing, or we're out, scanning a sector. doing a zone recon, area recon, screen line. So, that's when we're out collecting intel, and then reporting back to the higher ups using a SALT report or a salute report. So a SALT report is a size, activity, location, and time report of what we see out in our zone, or from our screen line, or from our observation post or listening post. And a salute report is size, activity, location, unit, time, and equipment. It's just a little more detailed report, but it's pretty much the same thing, kind of. Just one's a little more in depth. That's when we're trying to establish what type of enemy unit that we're looking at, and what assets, logistics do they have, and what's the size of the force. And whereas assault report's kind of a spot report, and it's a quick get it out there, let everybody know, hey, enemies in our crosshairs, enemies in sector. So one's faster, one's slower. And that comes from, that's pretty basic stuff, actually, for a 19 Delta Cavalry Scout to be knowing that kind of stuff. That's their basic job, is to be able to send out reports like that. And then also call for fire missions for mortar, artillery, and air support. But it gets a lot more technical the higher up you go within the organization. So, but all that said, when you're using military equipment, the way the military might use it might be a little different than the way you might use it, or it could be the same. If you're using night vision, you're, as a civilian, you're probably using it for security purposes rather than offensively. And if you're using it offensively, then that would either mean, one, you're a criminal, or two, you're being overrun or invaded by a criminal organization, and or we've been compromised in our nation, and the enemy is on our doorstep, and that would be the scenario. So, but having night vision would be a good thing, just for a diehard survivalist doomsday prepper. Pro mask, gas mask, I talk about that in the last couple episodes I've done. But yes, I agree, you should have one, and you should have the best one that's out there. And I'd have to concede that the last time I took the Seaburn school was back in 2000, and I think it was 2000. The years blend in together the longer you stay out. I think it was around 2010 when I went to Seaburn school. I'll have to look on my DD 214. It should tell me when I went to that school. But that information that I have from then could be outdated when it comes to the equipment. Now, I'm pretty sure the equipment hasn't changed that much, but there could be some improvement on mask designs and stuff like that. So what I would suggest is that you just get the most current mask available to you that's mil-spec. Mil-spec is a really good thing because it means it's been approved by the departments of the military, Department of Defense, Department of the Army, Department of the Navy, Department of the Marine Corps, Department of the Air Force, whatever. Space Force, wouldn't really worry about what Space Force has approved because they're so new. They're still going to try to figure themselves. They're still trying to organize themselves. But I would definitely, as far as ProMass, stick to the Army or the Marine Corps doctrinal educational manuals and stuff like that. I know the Army has a great school, Seaburn. I went to it because that was a prerequisite for me to become the NBC NCOIC for my unit and be the advisor to the commander for chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear warfare. And that was an additional duty. It wasn't even my main job. It's just an additional tasking. So I wouldn't say I was an expert because that wasn't my MOS. And there's people that is their MOS, and their school is far longer and more descript, and they know a lot more. But being that I went to the school, I was able to learn enough to meet the needs of the unit. And that way they have somebody that's been school trained and passed on standby in case they ever needed it for decontamination ops or setting up alarms or the procedures for donning the mop gear, getting into mop 4, when to rotate out the unit's filters on their masks. Because those filters, as I've said before in previous episodes, if you're a listener that listens in all the time, they're only good for 45 minutes, those charcoal mask filters that go onto the pro mask in a contaminated environment. So when you're in an environment that is contaminated with nerve agent or blood agent, you can't just run around there in that environment in your mop gear, because your mop suit is also charcoal line, and so those get saturated, they get wet, they filter as much as they can, and but eventually they need to be replaced. You need to do a mop exchange, and so you're gonna have to go decontaminate. And there's a whole procedure for decontamination, and even your vehicles, you have to decontaminate your vehicles. And there's a certain type of bleach that's used to do that, and it's not your household laundry bleach either. It's a corrosive bleach, so it's not something you want to put on your hands, so to speak. But you can use soapy water and wash yourself off. You do not want to use lotions. You do not want to use conditioners, especially in your hair, especially females out there. And you don't want to use a lot of lotions because you want to be able to wash your skin off. And when you put those lotions or conditioners, it makes it hard to decontaminate. But so we're not just talking about being ready for if we are attacked with a dirty bomb, we're attacked with a chemical bomb, we're attacked with nuclear. We're talking about right now just getting people into the mindset of it's a lot more complicated than you think. You really need to start researching. I strongly encourage people, if you're really into these topics, you need to do your homework. I'm only one person, and I can only cover topics that you should research. I can give you information about each topic, but you might have more questions far beyond what I might answer just in a radio broadcast. And so I can give you the resources where you can start looking. 1, go get you the SAS Survival Handbook. 2, go to the bookstore. I know that most of them seem to have shut down because the internet has shut them down with Amazon and all that stuff, but there's still a few out there left. I believe Barnes and Nobles is open, or whatever bookstore you have. The bigger the better. But go to the bookstore and buy you the SAS Survival Handbook. I really like that handbook. In the past, I've actually read from it, and made discussion points about it. So it's a good handbook for you to have. The U.S. Army Survival Manual, it's a field manual. You can get that and check that one out. Make sure you get the updated version so it's current and not some old Vietnam version that might not be current. Still going to have useful information in it because the fundamentals of survival never change. But I'd rather you have what's current because they could have added some new philosophies in their doctrine. Doctrine it always develops it has to match the current battlefield environment. So they're going to match it to what's prevalent, and there might not be a lot of changes either, but it's always best to have the most current publication possible. And most of that stuff is available to civilians, and anybody. It's not classified. It's not secret. It's open for the public to have it because it's not going to hurt anybody that how to build a shelter. But what's cool is with those survival manuals, especially the Vietnam era ones, is they definitely do teach you how to make use the terrain to set traps that would trap humans. I don't suggest you running around making those on public lands, but you can make whatever you want on your private land. But I would definitely put disclaimer warnings around, hey, don't enter, booby traps or something. Enter at your own risk or some kind of warning. Because even when the military puts a minefield out, they put out little placards. Okay. And that's required through the Geneva Convention that they put out placards. Now, like Russia might not honor the placards. They might put a minefield out and tell nobody where it's at except for their own people. And but most nations do honor it, but not all. So that's real. It's like when I was a soldier and I deployed to combat. I went on 4 combat deployments. It was kind of common knowledge amongst soldiers that we have to follow the rules, but they don't. And it's just the way it is, because if we don't follow the rules, we can catch a criminal case. But the force that we're fighting, the insurgency or the army or whatever, they don't really have to follow rules. And a lot of times they don't. So, but it's just the way it is. But these manuals, they're going to give you a perspective on building shelters out in the middle of the woods, or if you're in the desert. It's going to be a memory jogger for you. Now, I do suggest, whereas I said you can't learn and rely only on videos and what you read in books, but I do highly recommend that you watch videos and read books. But I'm telling you, don't only rely on that. I'm telling you, go take a survival class at a survival school. I'm telling you, go out there, and maybe you don't have access to a survival school, or you don't have enough money to pay for it. I don't know what your situation might be, but you go out there and put some of these things that you're learning to the test, and make a list of your strengths and your weaknesses, and work on your weaknesses. If you're weak at building shelters, then focus on building shelters and learn how to make them. Once you get it down, you never really forget it. And it's kind of like just learning how to waterproof your shelter. Learning where the appropriate place is to place a shelter. There's actually bad places to put a shelter that I wouldn't recommend you to put because, like if you live in Texas, for example, or in the desert, you got to watch where you push out because of washouts and stuff, where you could have a huge rainstorm 30 miles away, sunny and heck where you're at, hot even, and 30 miles away there's a downpour, and next thing you know, 4 hours has passed since the storm moved on, but it dumped a bunch of rain up in the mountains, and all of a sudden you're in the middle of a flash flood, and there was no storm anywhere near you. And it just took 4 hours for that body of water to arrive at where you're at. So you have to watch where you put your shelter. You got to pay attention to the terrain as well. You don't want to put your shelter or where you're going to be camping underneath a lot of big boulders that are sitting on the side of a cliff or on the side of a mountain, especially if it's been raining. And there's an absence of vegetation, or there was a forest fire, and there's an absence of vegetation, because a lot of times that vegetation soaks up the water, and when it's absent, it just kind of creates erosion. It allows for mudslides and rock slides to kind of happen, but it's just using your head. And you don't want to really build your shelter under a bunch of trees because, believe it or not, trees sometimes just fall over out of nowhere. Branches break off just out of nowhere, and it can land on top of your head. And that's not going to be a good day for you. It could be your last day on Earth. So just, whenever you're building shelters, be smart about where you're building it. Okay, look up and look down and look all around. All right, and be sure that you do a risk assessment of your site, so your campsite. You should always do a risk assessment of your surroundings. You should look out for things that can fall on you, things that could slide down on you, and predators, and just plan ahead. You're going to have to start really thinking outside the box, thinking ahead, and thinking safety first. Be a safety officer. That will help keep you alive. And don't take unnecessary risks when you're out there. All right? Because there might not be help. All right? Especially if you're in a situation that this episode's referring to. If we go to war, which, the politicians currently are saying that we're not, but that could change from week to week or month to month, or 6 months later we could be at a war. Could be a year later. Who knows? It really depends on what Russia does. If Russia stops with Ukraine, or if Russia decides to escalate. You wouldn't be a survivalist or a prepper if you didn't plan for the worst. So we need to plan for the worst. The worst case scenario is Putin doesn't stop at Ukraine. Now, by watching the news, it doesn't look like he's ultra successful right now, and he might have to think about regrouping before he has illusions of grandeur, a plan set to go take over other places, because he's probably going to get it handed to him. I know the Ukraine's the hero of the battlefield right now for Ukraine is the Javelin, and that was given to them by the United States. I went to Javelin school. I got trained on the Javelin, and it's a great individual shoulder fire rocket system. It's fire forget. That means once I put the tank or the helicopter into my sight picture and I fire, I can run. Once that missile leaves the tube, I'm out of there. And by the time that rocket impacts that tank downrange, I'm gone. All right. And when they go to look to maybe counterfire, or, which I really doubt they're going to be able to, because the Javelin has like a 94% success rate. And it's designed for top attack, but it can also do direct fire attack. So if the tank is in the hide position, it can direct fire attack. But the armor's thicker on a direct fire attack of the tank. So that's where that 94% kind of comes in. rather than being like 99%. So, but usually the Javelin does a top attack where the armor is the weakest. And so when I went to school, they teach you how to use the whole system. They teach you how to use the optics, and it kind of reminded me of the LRAS, which is a big box that we used to have on our Humvees, or we do OPs with it, and we can see very far. We can see using thermal optics, and it's very sensitive, and it can see very clearly and far, and it's great for calling for fire and stuff like that. We can laser target with it. We're talking about the LRAS. We can use a laser target, get a 10-digit grid, call for fire with it, and call for airstrike, call for artillery, call for whatever, mortar rounds. But it's pretty cool. And then we give that 10-digit grid coordinate up to our fire command, and then next thing you know, you sit there and you watch it get blown up. So the Javelin doesn't have the laser thing for it. It's designed to fire a rocket, and so I don't believe it can see as far as the LRAS, which is just an optical box. But the Javelin is a missile launching, rocket system, and you can reload the tube, but you have to keep the optics. And it's pretty lightweight. It's got like styrofoam on it and stuff, so it keeps it real light. So it's just styrofoam and plastic, and whatever's inside for the optics. So it's pretty lightweight, actually. The tube's the most heavy thing. Now, a Javelin rocket's pretty expensive, though. I'm guessing here, but I think I can remember getting a quote of about $80,000 for a rocket. So that's how much that Javelin rocket costs. But you think that Javelin rocket's destroying a tank. That tank costs a lot of money, too. But yeah, so if you have a whole company of Javelin soldiers, man, they can go wipe out a whole tank convoy. And if they do it in time and with great synchronicity, they can do it at one time. And it just have to be orchestrated by a battlefield commander, leader, or whatever. But so we're talking about war, and we're talking about survival, and we're talking about weapons of destruction and stuff like that. And you're like wondering, how does that relate to me here in Canada or United States or a nation that's currently at peace? Well, as you can see, I'm going to point out something to you. Ukraine was pretty much at peace up until about a week ago. Like 8 days ago. Everybody was living their lives happy-go-lucky, hoping that Russia didn't invade. But let's go back 6 months before that, a year before that, they were pretty much at peace. All right? Just think, 3 months ago, they were celebrating Christmas. And 3 months ago, they had celebrated New Year's, and their thoughts were, family, gathering, and now their homes are destroyed. Their wives are fleeing with the children out of the country, but the men can't leave because they're being forced to fight. And, and they should fight, I know some liberals out there, if that happened to the United States, they probably wouldn't want to fight. They probably welcome the enemy. So, and it happens. It actually happens in almost every war where it's called treason. and it exists in every war. And I wouldn't be surprised if some liberals, socialists, decided to take the enemy side. If America ever got invaded by a foreign military or foreign army or whatever, that's it's true. They would. Hopefully, the majority of us would not, though. We would do what the Ukrainians are doing. We'd take up arms and we'd fight for our freedom. It's the patriotic thing to do, especially if you want to stay free. So getting in the survival mindset, like I said at the top of the show, was you have to have the basics down. Fire, water, shelter, food. Okay? So fire. Once you know you can start fire, once you know how to build it using primitive methods, meaning rubbing sticks together, a friction fire, and then you know how to use a match, you know how to use a lighter, you know how to use, incendiary devices, you know how to use the ferrocerium rod, you know how to start a match using, gunpowder and cotton and rolling it in between two pieces of wood. There's lots of ways to start fire. There's chemical ways, of starting fire, but once you know you can start a fire, then that's one thing you can just stop worrying about. All right. Now you need to learn about water procurement. You need to learn how to find water. You can find water naturally. You can manipulate science to create water, but you're not going to get large volumes of it, but you'll get enough to wet your lips. And if you're smart enough and you can make a bunch of solar stills, and there's different types of solar stills. There's solar stills you put in the ground, which uses plastic to create moisture, because it acts like a greenhouse, and it creates moisture to collect onto the plastic, because it heats the dirt, and then it kind of turns to steam, and then it collects on the inside of the plastic, and then you have to kind of form a cone. You put your weight down the middle of the plastic, and then you have a capture device, and it drips into that. But you're not going to get large volumes of water off of that. Even if you put some green vegetation in there, you might get like a quarter of a cup, But if you had 30 of those solar stills laying around, you'd have, a significant amount of water every day, as long as it was sunny. But what if it became overcasted? What would you do if it was kind of overcasted? What would be your plan? I know what my plan would be. I would wake up early in the morning, and I would go out and collect all the moisture that's collected on smooth surfaces during the dew point hour. And I would use my t-shirt if I had to, or my socks. And I would sop it up and then wring it out into a capture device, like a cup or a bottle or something, and then I would drink it, but I would have drinkable water. You have to use science, and if you've never taken a survival class, what's a survival class going to teach you? It's going to teach you the basic fundamentals and the principles, but it's going to teach you a woodland survival. It's going to teach you how to survive if you're out in the woods camping or in the desert camping, or on a hike and you happen to get lost. It's going to teach you how to build a shelter, how to kill a chicken, and how to cook it, how to defeather it, how to gut it, maybe teach you how to go fishing, different methods of fishing. There's a lot of methods to fishing. If you give a man a fish, you feed him for the day, but if you teach him to fish, he can eat for a lifetime. That is so true. It's so true. So, and if you give a man a deer, you can feed him for a week, But if you teach him how to hunt a deer, he can eat deer for the rest of his life. So, so hunting. So hunting is a lot different than fighting. All right, so if you're a soldier, you have your rifle, you're ready for battle ops, but that doesn't mean you're going to be a good hunter. And just because you're a good hunter out in the wilderness and you can kill deer and boar and turkeys and whatever, doesn't mean, or bear or whatever, that doesn't mean you're a good soldier. Okay? Both have to be developed. Both have certain skills that come through trial and error. It comes through mentorship, comes through individual study and research, hands-on application. Both. So you can't be a soldier just because you're a hunter, all right, and think that you're going to be some badass super sniper. All right, there's a lot more that goes into things. A lot more. There's a lot of sciences in it. Just being a sniper, there's a lot of sciences. There's a lot of science behind it. There's how the round leaves the barrel of your rifle, what angle of trajectory the barrel of your rifle is at when you fire determines the flight and arc of the round. Then there's wind velocity, then there's distance, then there's trigger pull, trigger squeeze. There's a difference between pulling the trigger, which is bad, and trigger squeeze, which should always be, that pop's kind of a surprise because you kind of squeeze. But pull is an intentional pull, and you can actually pull your round right off target. That's called basic rifle marksmanship. And that's not special stuff there that I'm telling you. That's just basic rifle marksmanship. They teach that to privates in basic training. But it's a principle, a fundamental, and it doesn't change. It stays the same. So, and then you got those elite snipers that go out. They either went through sniper school or they went through some unit training for long-range rifle marksmanship. And they learn how to use an ACOG, which is a sight that they could use to shoot with, or they learn how to shoot with scopes. They learn about trajectory, the rise and fall of the round, breathing, crosswind, and they learn how to work with a spotter, and they work in tandem. Usually a good sniper always has a spotter. Do you have to have a spotter? If you really want to reach out and test someone, it's better to have a spotter. It's not required, but if you want a successful sniping operation in a combat environment, yeah, definitely would want a spotter. So that spotter needs to know what he's doing too. You might be a person that just wants to survive and not be a combatant, but I'm telling you, watch Ukraine right now. Everybody in Ukraine is a patriot right now. But Ukraine's a good example for you to watch. Russia was launching missiles at a nuclear reactor, a nuclear plant. And the Ukraine president came on and said, stop, leave the nuclear plant alone, all right? Because Chernobyl had, I guess, one reactor, one nuclear cell, and look what devastation it caused. All right, the plant that Russia was just firing at, and it caused a fire, and there was damage, but it didn't damage the nuclear reactor or the cells. But Chernobyl had one cell, and I think the president of Ukraine said that the plant that they were just attacking has 25 of them. So can you imagine Chernobyl times 25? Okay, and he was like, this is going to wipe out all of Europe if you don't stop. Leave the nuclear plants alone. You're not going to just hurt us. You're going to hurt your homeland. So leave it alone, all right? Because you're going to end up killing not only your enemy, but you're going to kill your loved ones back in Russia. So because it's going to devastate all of Europe. I was like, that, the chances of the United States being overran, like you see Ukraine happening, very slim, but I don't think we were going to have to worry about an invading army. I think the war in America is going to come from within. And that's what you need to be ready for. Now, do you need to be ready for nuclear war? Well, you have a Russian president that brought it up in conversation as a threat. He didn't say it directly, but he did say it indirectly. And I haven't followed everything he said lately, but he might have even mentioned it directly. But let's presume that he did threaten nuclear war. All right, so what do? Well, one, you need to be in the survival mindset, okay? You need to start thinking about, instead of going to Starbucks, instead of going to football practice, instead of going to do the normal things that you do because you want to enjoy your life, you're going to have to sacrifice something. You can't be a survival expert and survive a nuclear war and go be a ballerina, all right? You're not going to be able to play basketball and then go be a survival expert. All right? Not right now. You're going to have to make a choice. It's kind of like, do you want to go to hell or you want to go to heaven? Well, the only way you get to heaven is through Jesus Christ. So pick one. So, do you want to be a survivalist and survive a nuclear war? Then you're going to really need to change your habits and start learning and become a student. And you can learn a lot pretty quick. You can learn enough to save your life. And if you keep learning, the benefit of it is now you're not just saving your life. You're going to end up saving other people's lives because you're going to learn so much that, it's like me. I learned so much that I could definitely save my own life. And I will. And I also know so much that I could save other people's lives. And that's what I do. So, so how does one start to prepare? Well, you got to prepare where you live. And once your house is prepared, then you got to prepare what you travel in. So that means you're going to have to get your vehicles prepared. And then if you have a boat, you need to get your boat prepared. And every aspect of your life needs to be prepared. Every vehicle you travel in needs to be prepared. So whether it's an airplane, a boat, a car, a truck, a diesel, whatever, semi-truck. If you live in a house and then you have a vacation home, all locations need to be prepared. You need to have an egress plan, an escape plan. Where are you going to go if Putin decides to drop nuclear bombs on U.S. soil? Because I guarantee you, if nuclear bombs fall on U.S. soil, they're going to start falling on Russia. And other countries are probably getting involved in that. And, we could live in a post-apocalyptic environment, kind of, like in certain parts of the world. It won't be in all places of the world, but it will definitely be that way in a lot of places in the world. It would be, the devastation of nukes. So, now do I see all that happening? Right now, I don't see it happening in America today. But we need to really watch the direction of Putin. He's not kicking tail the way he thought he was going to kick. He's got resistance. And he's taken some losses. So, do I think if they're persistent, they're going to get what they want? Yeah, I think in time, they're going to get what they want. But it could be that his military is being exhausted as well. And so his mindset is what we have to question. And people need to start watching, because the body language that he emanates says a lot. And I'm not a body language expert, but I watch a lot of body language stuff. I watch some crazy stuff for entertainment. My form of entertainment is always educational. Sometimes people around me like to watch movies, drama movies and stuff. And once in a while, I will enjoy watching a movie. But mostly, I like to learn stuff. So I'll watch. There's a program on, or it's a channel. I just can't remember the name off the top of my head. But I watch a lot of their videos where they break down body language of people, especially public figures like presidents and stuff, and or whatever, serial killers or whatever. But they'll watch videos of their body language, and then they break down what the person is really thinking and doing. And it's because these people are highly trained and skilled at interrogations and body language science. And so you can kind of tell when you're talking to someone the hidden thoughts that they have, because they can't help but to do certain things with their body, facial expressions, or the way they look around, And it's not a sure thing. But it's pretty accurate. It's actually very accurate, but it's not 100%. It's kind of like the lie detector test. It's pretty accurate, but there's flaws to it. So it can be defeated in court. In some states, it's not admissible. So probably it's the same with body language too. But if you watch Putin, he's not good at hiding his intentions. That's all I'll say. And he strikes me as a very evil guy, And so that being said, I wouldn't put it past the dude putting his finger on the mute button if he felt backed in the corner. So I think he's perfectly capable of doing something like that. So being prepared for a nuclear bomb. Well, you're probably saying, well, Daniel, what if a nuclear bomb hits? What do I do? Oh, I've talked about it in a few previous episodes, but I'm going to reiterate again. You need to start looking around where you live at a place that you can get to within 5 minutes to 7 minutes. That offers concrete, because concrete's really good for resisting radiation, and it will also act better for you at deflecting a blast. And it'll put a barrier for you. So you have to identify terrain features that are either natural or man-made. So we have bridges, overpasses, underpasses, there's if there's a nuclear bomb gonna blow up and detonate, and say the bomb hit San Jose, California, where would I want to be right now? And right now I'm in San Ramon, California at the present moment, until tomorrow morning. Then I'll go back to Pleasanton, and then tomorrow afternoon I will go to Hayward. But I'll be in the East Bay. And so San Jose, it's probably about 30 miles away from me right now. So if a nuclear bomb, say it was just one nuclear bomb, blew up there, I'd probably be okay. I'm outside the nuclear blast radius. I would see the mushroom cloud. I would probably see the bright flash. I would definitely hear it blow up eventually. The sound wave would get to me. But I wouldn't necessarily be in the nuclear fallout or blast radius 30 miles out. The first thing I'd want to do is get away from here and go further away as further as possible to get away, because where there's one nuclear bomb, just ask Japan. There was two, and there could be more. So it's better to put distance between you and the target area. And who really fires this one nuclear bomb, and that's it, So, all these countries have nuclear bombs, and, the United States is the only one that's ever really used it on another country, and we all saw what it did to Japan. And, it wasn't like Japan was playing Mr. Nice Guy, with us either. They did attack us on Pearl Harbor and then in the South Pacific, so, it wasn't like the country, the government, was, an innocent victim. But the people of Japan were innocent victims. Most people in a country don't want their country to be aggressive in the modern day and take over another country, because now people are more peaceful. They don't want their... All right, so say for instance, you see all the Russian citizens protesting what Putin's doing, and what do they get? They get arrested for protesting, and then they go to jail. And there's been a couple thousand of them by now that have been arrested. And they keep protesting even though they know that there's a threat of them being arrested. So we're going to take a short break for a commercial, and we'll be back in just a few moments. Are you a fan of survival? Do you like all things survival? Full spectrum survival, urban survival, wilderness survival, how to escape and evade, lost or stranded, doomsday prepper, all things survival you can find on www.daniel-shrigley.com. Come visit my official survival website at www.daniel-shrigley.com and learn how to sustain, survive, and escape and achieve rescue or self-rescue. Proficient Protection Agency is based out of Alameda, California. If you have security service needs, Proficient Protection Agency can provide armed and unarmed security services. They service Northern California Bay Area, and you can find them at www.ppasecurity.com. Hi, you're listening to Survival Talk Radio with me, your host, Dan-Shrigley. Come and learn survival. Welcome back. And so, Personal Protection Agency. Personal Protection Agency. If you live in Northern California, that is the company that you should turn to for all your security needs. If you own a business or have personal property, rental property, such as an apartment complex, you own a jewelry store, or you need patrol services for your car lot, maybe you have a dealership. But Personal Protection Agency is your go-to. And they are a sponsor, and they are a great company. I believe they've been around for 14 years in business, and they're just a great company. I personally know the owner for about 23 to 24 years now, and it's just a great company. It's family owned and operated, and it has a wealth of experience within the industry of security protecting, and they're very professional looking, and I also do new client marketing for them, and to help out my friends. I have been known to work for them from time to time because I am also considered an expert in the security industry with the amount of years I have invested into it. So, Personal Protection Agency. That website is, again, www.ppasecurity.com. So back to our conversation. You have to have that psychology of survival down. And so you need to start thinking in that survival mode. And to be in that survival mode means you need to start thinking safety first. You need to start planning. You need to change your habits. You need to start worrying about things that you never even thought about before. It's a total different animal. So the psychology of survival just means that you're in that survival mindset. And that survival mindset is always thinking about living to see tomorrow, and being properly prepared and planning and doing all the things that you need to improve your odds to survive. So we talked about the principles of survival, the fundamentals, the basics. Now we need to talk about, arming yourself. Now some states, have laws, like California is really strict. Other states are not as strict. And so you need to adhere to the laws of the land that you're in. Otherwise, you're not going to be surviving anything if you get put in jail. So the goal is don't get yourself incarcerated because you're breaking the law, violating some gun laws. Play by the rules while you have to. But once shit hits the fan and everybody's out for themselves, then that's a little bit different scenario. It's always better to hide out on private property, private land, than public land. Because you got to remember, the mass majority of people are going to flee, refugee basically, to safe areas, and they're often going to go to the same places you want to go. And also, if there's a nuclear war, supply and demand, it's going to be horrific. So you might have to learn how to live off the land if you want to eat. And you're really going to have to consider nuclear fallout. And it's not always going to be a perfect situation. Sometimes the best thing to do is to flee. Bill Simpson, the nautical prepper, he was on Doomsday Preppers, and he had a sailboat with his family, and he converted his sailboat to be to help them survive off the grid. And their plan is to flee, get on their boat and head south, and get away from the United States if we were to go to like nuclear war. But he has everything on his boat that he needs, and his family knows how to use the boat, and it's a sailboat, so he can sail anywhere. He has an island picked out somewhere on the face of the earth where he can go escape to, and so not everybody has that resource though, but there's a lot of sailboats out there, and there's going to be a lot of people that own sailboats that get blown up in the nuclear bomb. And so it's kind of like in that environment, kind of everybody becomes a criminal. In that environment, if it's there and someone else didn't take it, well, I'm not going to stick around. I'm going to jump on that boat and I'm going to take it on south, so that's, like, do you know how to sail a boat? I don't know how to sail a sailboat. I have to learn. That's something that's on my bucket list, learn how to go sailing. Another thing on my bucket list is learning how to fly a plane and a helicopter. So, I guess I always got something I want to do, something I want to learn, but all those things can help improve my odds to survive. But my focus is to survive and take those closest to me, my loved ones, with me. But having a plan of where you're going to go, what you're going to do, is good. And the best way to really make things work for you is to network and, get onto a network group, in your area where you're collaborating with like-minded people. And you could use social media apps to do that. You can start a YouTube channel, a TikTok account. You can start a Facebook or Metabook, whatever the company's name is now, group or a page. Now, I believe a group might be better, but and then you just start inviting everybody that's like-minded and just start building a group. And as people that are like-minded with you, they know people that are like-minded with them, and then they'll invite people, and then you just create a group. But you're not trying to grow your group to be as big as it possibly can. You're trying to grow your group within the community you live in. So that way, the people you're actually spending your time conversing with and networking with are close at hand. They live in the same town or the same county. So target your group to be area specific to you, so that way you can meet up with these people at the coffee shop, all right? Or you can meet up with each other and have an event somewhere, or go meet up out in the state park somewhere or national forest somewhere and meet up. But that way you can network and formulate a plan. I would call it the nuclear neighborhood watch program. So but kind of like a neighborhood watch. But yeah, you want to keep this community group very centrally located to your specific area. There should be these groups all over the place, but they should all be area specific. So there should be one for San Francisco. There should be one for the Bay Area. You can have it pretty broad. I mean, you can have Northern California, but the more narrow it is for you, the more likelihood you guys can get together. Like I know groups that are Jeep organizations, and the thing they have in common is they all go off-roading with their Jeeps. And, it's a little community that they pull together, and those Jeep guys, those off-road vehicle guys and girls, get together and go have fun on the weekends, and they'll just go to different locations and they drive their Jeeps through different terrain challenges, and maybe some of the members of those groups are into survival and doomsday prepping. But I wouldn't go through a Jeep group that likes to do off-roading for the pretext of this conversation. I would go to a group or start a group. Maybe you need to moderate it, but start your own group for your own area, and maybe do your county, or maybe do maybe you live in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, and so maybe you want to do all of southern Florida, or just Palm Beach Gardens and Palm Beach County, and then maybe you live in Miami, you want to do South Florida. Florida wouldn't be the greatest place that I would think of to try to escape a nuclear blast. It's pretty flat. There's not a lot of terrain features to hide behind. what is a good barrier for a nuclear blast? A terrain feature, natural terrain feature like a mountain range into a valley. You have mountains on all sides of you, and you're in the valley. And then man-made would be sewer systems, basements, bomb shelters, reinforced concrete, the belly of a building down below in the parking garage structure, 3 floors down, would be a good place to go. The problem is getting out, because if it's a nuclear blast, and say you lived in San Francisco and you live in a high-rise, residential building that's luxury, like the Avery, and you go on down to the bottom floor, which is -3 floor in the parking garage, and then there's a nuclear blast downtown of San Francisco, and your building gets blown off, you're going to be down there, and how are you going to escape if you survive it? So, in some ways, the best place to go is to escape the metropolitan area altogether, because you might not survive being in the metropolitan area. Especially, you remember what I said was, usually there's just not one bomb. There's going to be multiple bombs. One rocket can release up to like 25 nuclear warheads. They're all built into the tip, and it's kind of like a cluster of nuclear bombs on just one missile, and it's like that because it has ghost bombs on it, or artificial bombs, and then so that way a missile defense system, sees one rocket go up, so it arms for it, and then all of a sudden it separates its capsule, and then 25 bombs separate from that capsule, and then the missile defense now has to pick which one it wants to shoot down, and so say it's successful and shoots one down, but there's 25 other ones, some are real, some are fake, and it doesn't know which is which, and so it kind of gets overloaded. That way Russia can ensure that they get a successful hit with a nuclear bomb on U.S. soil. So, and that's the threat. Putin said any country that gets involved with this conflict, they're going to suffer a tragedy that they've never suffered in their entire history. And so, the only thing Putin has that he can make a threat like that with is nuclear. And he's got like 6,000 nuclear warheads. So, so basically, that causes our nuclear threat level to rise up. The best method is, like any politician is going to tell you, is diplomacy. But Putin doesn't seem very diplomatic, as he's the aggressor and he invaded Ukraine. And I do see support for Russia on social media, and even by people that I'm friends with. They support Russia because they believe Ukraine is horrible. Ukraine has done some stuff, and I'm like, maybe the government is. I don't know a whole lot of its history, but what I do know is I see a bunch of people being killed by an invading army that was, by all intents purposes, unprovoked. And that's where some people may disagree with that philosophy. They'll say it's not unprovoked. It was provoked. It's been being provoked for quite a long time, and Putin acted on it. But regardless of who provoked what, if Ukraine's government is corrupt or whatever, regardless of all that, there's a lot of innocent civilians that have nothing to do with any of that being the target of bombs. And, there's no acceptable measure of life being lost that we could say, it's collateral damage and it's okay. I just cannot do it. Every life is precious. You can't be BLM supporter and then turn around and tell me that you don't think that you're supporting Russia blowing up Ukrainians. You can't be a Trump supporter and tell me that it's okay that the Ukrainians are dying. I think this war in Russia could actually create a little bit of a bipartisan stance amongst voters. I don't really give a shit about politicians too much, but at least amongst the voters, the citizens here in the United States, there should be a little bit of a bipartisan stance with this war, where most people are kind of feeling like, it's amazing seeing the people rise up and take arms. That's why we have the Second Amendment, so we can do the same thing. Because Joe Biden in his State of the Union said deer aren't running around wearing Kevlar vests. No, they're not. But we don't have assault rifles and all these weapons that we do have under our Second Amendment and have the right to own for killing deer. We have this for killing tyrannical leaders and invading armies and soldiers or law enforcement that is in violation of their oath to the Constitution of the United States, that want to turn around and enforce whatever the tyrannical leader is doing or saying or whatever. Justin Trudeau's quite lucky his population didn't turn on him when he imposed that Emergencies Act. He's lucky that they didn't take to the streets and go hunt him down, because there's no way, so you can see the power of what a collective of everyday normal people can do by just looking at Ukraine, the resistance. It's not just the military that's out there resisting. It's civilians carrying weapons, and they have military liaisons with them that are military trained that can teach them, hey, do this, do that, hey, and they're basically supervising them, which spreads the strength of the military out and allows them to adopt in their civilian defenders. You see, it's working out quite well because of that. It was like, we'll just give it the high mark number for the Russian troops. Say it was 200,000. Well, Ukraine has 44 million people. So you have 44 million pissed off people. It doesn't matter if you have a 200,000 man army with tanks and all that stuff. Eventually, the 44 million people are going to turn around and win. They're going to win as long as they don't give up and get scared and surrender. And I'm sure some places there have been a few that surrender because they're being overrun. And that's what I was trying to tell doomsday preppers. Never keep your inventory at your home. Keep a part of it there, but geocache it all around. That way, if you lose one part, you don't lose all parts. You need to compartmentalize and section everything off and geocache. Put a little bit here, put a little bit there, stash some of your stuff at your office, stash some of it at your bug out location, stash some of it at your home, stash some of it buried in the ground in steel drums, wrapped in plastic to protect it from the elements. And stash it, I wouldn't use GPS because that system could be turned off or hacked or shut down, or an EMP could take it out. But you want to use landmarks that you're not going to forget. And I wouldn't really use a map so much because your map can be compromised. All it takes is you to lose it or someone to take it from you. But I would definitely, have a geocache and several of them with my inventory in it, so I could just go back to it, and all I need is a shovel And you can put a shovel at each geocache and just hide it somewhere. Bury it shallow, bury the shovel next to the geocache, but shallow, so that way you can dig up the soil with just your hands, or you can kick the dirt up with your feet until you can see, but shallow enough where it doesn't wash away in the rain, deep enough where it doesn't wash away in the rain, but shallow enough where you can dig it out with kicking the dirt up with your boots, or dig it out with your hands, or whatever, or dig it up with your pocket knife. Not your survival knife, though. Survival knife is the one that you don't use until you need it for a survival situation. That's the blade that you always keep sharp and protected. But your utility knife, the one that you're always using, that's got nicks and stuff in it, that you can sharpen, that you sharpen all the time. But yeah, geocache. And so the premise of this show is really you taking the time to educate yourself, getting the SAS Survival Handbook, going to the bookstore and looking up survival and nuclear war, looking up the book, Field Army Manuals for Seaburn, chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear warfare, and get the U.S. Army manuals. Those will help you. Go get them U.S. Army manual on field hygiene. Field hygiene is going to be really important for you. You're going to learn the 5 F's: fingers, flies, fluid, fecal matter, and food. And you're going to learn how to live outdoors, but do it in a healthy manner. And you're going to need to know all that stuff. And then the U.S. Army's survival field manual. And then go buy you a couple different variations of survival books, like Les Stroud's book. Ray Mears has a survival book out there. I wouldn't buy the Michael Hawks survival book. I looked at it. It looks like garbage. I wouldn't waste your money buying Michael Hawks. He's that pompous ass guy that freaking had his own TV show called Man, Woman, Wild with his wife Ruth. Ruth's a sweetheart, but that guy, I've met him in person. He's a prick. I don't like him at all. He's fake. He's pompous. He actually tried to backstab me in the back and go behind my back and get my get the person I introduced him to invest in him and ditch me for some film programming. And then when he found out I got on Discovery Channel and he didn't, he got jealous and started hating and writing a bunch of lies and stuff. And he is so horrible. He even made up a lie. He said that I had attacked a woman in a hotel room, which never happened. But he made up the story because that's the kind of guy he is. I was like, if you think I attacked a woman in a hotel room, go get the woman and have her put out a public statement. And then we'll go request police reports. Because if I attacked a woman in a hotel room, don't you think there would be a police report and I would have been arrested? So, I wasn't arrested for anything like that. There's no police report with me being a suspect. And even if, say, for instance, I did get into an altercation with someone in a hotel room, I never got charged or arrested for it. So that means I must not have broke the law. So, what he's trying to say is hearsay. It's circumstantial, even if it was true, but it's not true. It's just goes to show his personality. He did the same thing to Joe Ted-Eye. When Joe Ted-Eye was filming a TV show, he started saying a bunch of bad stuff about Joe Ted-Eye and had the whole world convinced, because we didn't really know how Michael Hawk's personality was, but at the time, we thought he was a very notable guy. He was a captain in the Army. I'm going to tell you the truth. A captain's not a high-ranking guy at all. There's a bunch of jerk captains in the military. I served with a few, and he was a National Guard captain. It wasn't like he was an active duty captain. He did do active duty as a sergeant first class, and and that's commendable. He did become a Green Beret, which is very commendable. But I know some jackass sergeant first classes that are just jerks and garbage. And then he was a sergeant first class that probably couldn't cut the mustard to become a first sergeant or a sergeant major, let alone a master sergeant. So definitely not a command sergeant major. So he took the commission officer side after having spent so many years to become a sergeant first class and become a captain. So that's why he calls himself Captain Hawk. Great. He got higher rank than I did in the Army. But that's okay. I got to where I wanted to go, and then I realized that I had a different calling. The Army's not the only thing I have going, and I'm actually still more relevant than Michael Hawk in the survival industry. He's kind of not relevant any longer. I still do radio. I still get TV show offers. I'm just not interested in doing any TV shows at the time. The TV show I did do, I actually didn't really enjoy it because it wasn't survival focused. It was drama focused, and it was, it wasn't anything like what I was told it was going to be like before filming, and it ended up just being drama. And once I saw the direction that filming was going and their focal point, because on camera, when I was filming, I was doing a lot of educational stuff that I was hoping would be included in the final cut. It didn't get included. They focused more on the drama, like, is Dan getting along with this person or that person, and it all became the Dan-Shrigley survival show because everybody was against Dan-Shrigley because somehow I pissed off the wrong person in the beginning, and he went around behind my back. His name was JD, but nonetheless, it just wasn't what I was thinking it was going to be. I wanted to do survival education stuff, and instead I ended up being with a bunch of whining, complaining, immature jackasses. And once I figured that out, I was just like, I'm out. That's why some of the cast members left, because they saw that there was a bunch of whining, complaining jackasses, and they didn't want to be part of it no more. It was like, so they left early. But I'm not a quitter. I'll stay to the end. I will win just to spite you. And that's what I did on that show. Ultimate Ninja Challenge on Discovery Channel 2018. You can probably watch it on the Discovery Plus app or Discovery Go app. Or you can order by the season or by the episode from Apple TV. But yeah, you can watch it. I'm definitely wouldn't say I was in my shining moment on there. But hey, it was supposed to be a survival show. It ended up just being a show about drama and some make-believe challenges related to the ninjutsu, Kuji, the 9 Kuji principles. So, did I learn some stuff? I learned about the ninja. As far as that, no, I didn't really learn anything. I just learned that some people you just can't get along with. That's what I learned. And I learned people are backstabbers. But I already knew that. But I learned that sometimes it's better to win than to give up just to spite people. Yeah, and it was great on the reunion to make them have to see my face again, because I knew that they didn't like my face. When I look in the mirror, I don't like it either, but I don't have to see it unless I look in the mirror, but they have to see it every time they look at my face. So you're lucky you're listening to a radio show. So anyways, I'm gonna cut this one. I gave you an hour and a half of my time, and I hope you learned. And if you have questions, send me an email at daniel@daniel-shrigley.com, and I would be more than happy to respond to you. Or you can get on Facebook and private message me on my page, which has got the verification check mark. Or you can come find me on my private account on Facebook, or you can go find me on Instagram. Or you can even find me on TikTok. But if you really want to get in touch with me, I'm pretty easy to get in touch with. You just have to put forth just a little effort. But get me your question. I know I record this show on one platform, but it goes out to multiple platforms. So it should be populating within 15 minutes on every platform. 15, 20, 30 minutes, something like that. It should be on Spotify, Google Music, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, naturally, because this is where we're recording it on, and Podcaster, and just a bunch of other ones I can't think of at the top of my head right now. But if you're listening to podcasts, it's going to be on your provider, no doubt. About 90% chance that it's going to be on the provider that you listen to podcasts on. All right, so Survival Talk Radio. I'm your host, Dan-shrigley. Thank you for joining us. Proficient Protection Agency is based out of Alameda, California. If you have security service needs, Proficient Protection Agency can provide armed and unarmed security services. They service Northern California Bay Area, and you can find them at www.ppasecurity.com.
Take us to your land, where you live. Survival Talk Radio. We like Survival Talk Radio. Take us to your land.
Are you a fan of survival? Do you like all things survival? Full spectrum survival, urban survival, wilderness survival, how to escape and evade, lost or stranded, doomsday prepper, all things survival, you can find on www.daniel-shrigley.com. Come visit my official survival website at www.daniel-shrigley.com and learn how to sustain, survive, and escape and achieve rescue or self-rescue.
Survive this.